welcome to today's live interview with Chala Dinkoy, who is one of our amazing contributors in the Thriving Thought Leader giveaway. And we're so excited to have her here with us. For those of you that don't know me yet, my name is Lucas Garvin, co-founder at Thought Leaders Institute and co-host of this giveaway, along with my business partner, Jim. Jim, how about you kick us off?
Sure. I'm so happy to have Chala here. Chala is a friend of mine as well as a colleague. We met a few years back at another event. I saw her there presenting and she was just really impressive and we just really connected. And I love doing business with and partnering with people that I vibe with. And so she's definitely someone that I do. And so I'm really happy to bring her here and have her share her expertise with you guys. So Chala, why don't you just quickly tell us a little bit about what you do and, anything you want to share to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. I just want to say that I looked for the picture of us hugging at the Nexus. So Jim and I.
Oh, yes. You're going to tell that story?
He was trying to get into Canada. I was trying to get into the US section.
I was there.
Oh, it was so funny. No, you weren't there. I didn't.
Not there, but I remember this story though. I don't know if I was there or because there was a time when Jim was telling me about it when we were crossing the Canadian border when we went to Stu McLaren's Tribe Live event a couple years ago.
Oh, because
that's what it was.
Crossed before because then like they're so mean at those like border crossings, right? And they were so happy for us because we were hugging. It was so funny.
I'm like, I was getting interviewed for my global entry is what it was. And I'm like, turn around. I'm like, Chala, what are you doing here? And I'm like, just 1 second. I know that person. Give me just a second. And they were very, very nice.
I know.
So, yeah.
Usually they're so mean. So they really like the love. So I just want to say we have so many funny memories. Okay. So my name is Chala Dinkoy. I'm the founder of the Repositioning Expert, and I help people super niche so they can sell more. And I usually work with B2B companies, sell to corporations. I was a big corporate girl, and I worked for 18 years for Pepsi, Pizza Hut, Frito-Lay. And I always used to say, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you to the people that used to call me. And then I can't remember, like, did you have a corporate background too?
I did. Yeah, I worked in corporate for years. Yeah. Oh. Not that many though. I got tired of it probably after about 4 to 5 years.
Oh, lucky you. Well, Lucas, you look like, you probably didn't do that. You didn't make that mistake, did you?
I started my first business at 10 years old. So I literally I've literally never worked for the man in my life.
Just briefly for me.
Talk to my 10-year-old, please. He wants to learn how to do it for sure. That's awesome. I know.
Yeah, it's a great career path. I mean, a lot of people these days are skipping right over college and not jumping into their life with $150,000 or $200,000 of debt. So
look at him. He looks happy.
He looks happy. Well, cool. So tell us a little bit more about. So now you're working with small businesses, right? So how do you help them?
So it's really hard to get into corporations. And I know because for 18 years, I stopped people from selling to me. But now I know what it takes to get to inside that door to get into corporations. So when small businesses, and even if they aren't selling to corporations, the number one problem they have is how to stand out. And I don't know if you have the same problem or ran into the same problem in your own business, because the business survival marketing, which is what I talk about in the giveaway, there's only one way you're going to survive in this meltdown, you guys, and it's to stand out. And if you don't stand out, and so many people think they stand out, but if you don't stand out, you don't stand a chance. And that's the whole premise.
So what are the people who think they stand out but aren't really standing out? What do you think they're missing?
Well, let me tell you, I usually do a talk called Twinning Your Competition, why 86% of buyers can't see the difference. The number one reason why these CEOs that I polled before I did the talk thought they were different was years of experience. Ha, ha, ha. They thought, oh, I have years and nobody cares that you're old, really. And then the other thing they thought people cared about was excellent service. I talked to this guy, he wrote a book about it. He called it the extra scoop because that's his extra good service. Everybody's claiming the same thing, you guys. That is not differentiated. And then the last one is price. Everyone thinks that just because they can better the price or save you some money. Well, guess what? Everyone's saying the same thing. So when you say the same thing as everybody else, that's why nobody can tell that you're different. That's what I help.
Yeah. Completely agree. Absolutely. And this is one of the things that we talk about with our clients too. And I think maybe in a slightly different light and maybe not quite in as much depth as you probably go into in your work. But absolutely, when people are either just starting out or even to some degree when they're growing, but they're not hitting the level of profitability that they want, sometimes there's that next level of specificity and how they talk about what they do and or how they communicate who they help that really takes things to that next level, especially in online marketing. So I just wanted to ask, what is really the hardest thing in your mind, for small businesses who want to market online? What's the most difficult part of that?
So online or offline. So one of the big things that I've been teaching people in this whole COVID is how to figure out that super niche and then package it to put it online, which is the online part is your genius, right? But finding that super niche, finding that differentiator, which is the super niche, and then putting it online. What people are resisting right now is, and Jim and I talked about this even before the whole thought leadership forum started, but if you're talking about vision and growth and people are in survival mode, you're tone deaf. They can't hear you. So if your product or services are like, I have a client who is in my 7-module online Nail Your Niche course, and she's an art broker. So she works with like large developers for a commercial space. Well, guess what? Nobody's even going into the office. Everybody stopped development.
Right.
So her business is shot. So she's using the Nail Your Niche program to figure out a new niche that she could sell online. And she's been looking at things like, can she use art as background to differentiate businesses when they're on Zoom calls? She's been looking at, can she, package her services of consulting into solving a very specific problem? So everything has to do with that one niche. And then how do you find that niche? You can't just throw spaghetti at the wall and figure it out. If I did that when I worked at Pepsi, Pizza Hut, Frito-Lay, I would have been fired. So, I mean, I had thousands of dollars to spend for research, but small businesses like ours don't. So what I've done is I've created this free way to figure out, how do you find your super niche in the market and let the market tell you instead of you telling them. That's the most difficult part, is people think they know how to figure it out, or they think they know what the niche is.
That is, I've experienced that so frequently in working with thought leaders over the years, is that, we talk about marketing and what it takes to market online and to grow your business and to become known as a thought leader in your space. And, we come to that topic of, have you niched down, or who is your ideal client? And they say, yeah, well, I help women to, feel better in their bodies. And that's great, right? But there's really a next level of specificity. And I keep hearing you say this super niche phrase, and it's actually not something that I've ever heard before. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about what is a super niche, because I think that's the next level that so many people are not going to, that's actually holding them back from the ability to have more profitability, more predictability in their marketing and their sales.
So I'll start with me as an example. I started off as a marketing strategist, and there's a million marketing companies out there, right?
Yep.
A million of them. So
very familiar.
yeah. I didn't get anywhere. I was starving. I would go networking and pay for trade shows, and Jim knew me at some of those points, like I've wasted so much time and money. And then I hired coaches to help me super niche. And then I looked at all the brands and all the line extensions that I'd worked on, and I put together this whole system of how to super niche. And then I went from a general marketing girl to a niching coach. And then I took and then things started to move. And then I went one step further and I became an elevator pitch coach. And that's when things took off. Like last year was 4 times what I normally used to make after 20 years of work.
Nice.
I had a fabulous last year. Don't ask me about this year, but last year. right? I got asked to speak at the Disney Institute. I was on the New York Times Jumbotron the time that I came to see you.
I remember.
I spoke at NASDAQ. I spoke at like all these other things, but it's all because and then last year I made all that money and not once did I pick up the phone to get on any stage. It was everybody called me. And that's the thing about super niching. So let me give you some other stories. Do you know of any IT support companies? They do just managed services.
Yep.
Do you do that yourself?
No.
Don't, right? Okay. So I don't know. Maybe you have an arm that does that. So imagine IT support companies. They're a dime a dozen, right? If somebody says they do IT support, they're like, your eyes are glazing. So we super niched them after we did the research on something called On Hold Rescue. And they became healthcare call center solutions to waiting too long on hold. Literally, that is such a super niche. So the name they rebranded under On Hold Rescue, and the tagline was something like reducing wait times on, for healthcare. So then they're huge, huge sales funnel grew from there. Another example is a wealth advisor. You probably have a wealth advisor, right?
Well,
Oh my God, you should get one. Well,
probably.
but if you've ever gone networking, I'm sure you've met a boatload.
Yes, definitely met plenty.
Oh my God, right? And so they're not differentiated, and most of them are starving. I even wrote about this, wealth advisors who have no wealth, and it's really so this woman and we worked together to super niche her in divorcing women. Because when we did the research, it turned out that, well, you're neither of you are women. And so you don't know what it's like to be a divorcing woman. But apparently, I mean, I got divorced last year, but it wasn't an issue because I had my best year last year. They're worried about their income or lifestyle going down after the divorce. So she became divorcingwoman.ca, and she became the choice through Clarity. So people were coming to her now because there's 22 meetup groups for divorcing women in Toronto alone.
Wow.
So she would go to these groups and do lunch and learns, and people were coming to her. Whereas before, nobody would talk to her about money. It's very, very personal. So those are some of the ways that you can super niche.
Yeah, I love that. One of the ways that we teach, clarifying and what we call your expert positioning statement, right? Typically goes something like, I help X type of people achieve Y with my Z system, that kind of thing, right? And so, but the way that we teach niching in our programs is that it's a combination of who you help and how you help them, right? Absolutely. And so, I think the difference is it's really that next level of specificity that's required to hit that super niche level, right? Because, I help women to, feel better in their bodies. That's, sure, that's a niche, right? That is who you help and how you help them, but it's not super niche level, right? It might be, super niche, I think could also potentially include the symptoms that they're experiencing, right? So you said in this case with the IT company, one of the symptoms is these healthcare centers who have people who are on hold too long. That's a symptom, right? That's a problem or an issue. So it's not just the label, it's not just the who they are, it's how they're feeling or what they're experiencing too. That's part of that, right?
You actually hit on a really, really good point, because most of my work is done on pain. So that's strange, but our niches are based on problems. So we work it backwards. So unlike traditional marketing companies, we don't, decide what we're going to sell and who we're going to sell it to. Instead, we look out at the market, we throw a wide net at first. You can't see my arms, but wide net. Throw wide net. And so then we go and research each of those different groups within that realm, within that net, for their most expensive pain point. And if it's like a B2C, like a business to consumer, they're not losing money, but they're losing sleep, they're losing health, whatever, or they're losing love, or they're losing their dreams. So there's always a cost to, to something, to a pain. And that's what we're trying to base our marketing niche on. The niche is pain based. So you hit on it perfectly.
Awesome.
Can I ask you a question about when you present this to people? Because we get this a lot, which is, if I niche down too much, like what do I do with these other people? Like, aren't I going to lose business because I'm not serving everybody? I'm sure you have an answer to that, right?
I absolutely get that all the time. And the truth of it is, I'm not against niching in multiple niches, but I want you to just niche one at a time, just saturate it and then move on to the next one.
Right.
So I'm just showing you how to saturate it. And to saturate it, you need, as you know, 7 to 12 touch points. And it depends on you. If you want those touch points to be spread over 5 years, because you're spread into 5 different niches with 5 different target groups, go for you. Good for you. But like, I want results. So I want to be in their face. And you can only be in their face if they're self-gathering, and only 2 kinds of people self-gather, by industry or interest group. So you got to hit them all the time. And if you're in their world and they're self-gathered, they've done the heavy lifting for you. So you don't have to cherry pick and go to events and try to pick people who are, whatever you're looking for. Instead, I want them from the start to be gathering once a month. And the only people who gather once a month are people who self-congregate. And they only self-congregate if they're interested in the same thing or they're in the same industry. So it's really easy.
Yeah. There's something really interesting about this whole niching conversation that I think if we zoom out a little bit has a really big impact on whether or not, especially in this industry of being a thought leader, you can succeed or not. Right. And so, my friend Ryan Dice has this saying, the business that is both willing and able to spend the most to acquire a customer will always win. And while that's absolutely true, what if you didn't have to? What if you didn't have to spend the most to acquire a customer? What if instead of spending the most, you could actually spend less, because what you're saying is so much more relevant and important to that customer than anything else that's out in the marketplace, that they just have to have what it is that you're talking about. Yeah. That, I think, is the difference, right? This is what allows thought leaders, especially who are just getting started or really looking to grow faster. This is what allows that, because when you super niche, when you go down further and you get more specific, it's easier to say, look, this is my expertise, this is my domain, and this is how I help people.
And
right?
Own it.
And own it, right? And own it, right? And sometimes, again, friend, mentor, and client Lisa Sasovich, she says, what is it? You claim the throne, right? That that you sit on. And this is sort of like that. Like, you have to sort of claim, like, this is my space. Yeah. But it's a lot easier to do that when you're not saying, I help people lose weight.
Yeah.
Right. Great. So does, Weight Watchers. And I guarantee you they can afford to spend a lot more to acquire a customer than you can.
Absolutely. I heard Amy Porterfield talking about, it was a doctor. She was a surgeon, and she lost, and it's one of her clients, and she lost 50 pounds. And if you know anything about the life of a surgeon, they don't eat, they don't sleep. Like, they're just shoving whatever they can. They're starving usually, and they're just have a horrible lifestyle, right? They have no time to exercise. They have no time to food prep. And yet she lost 50 pounds. So then she decided, and people kept asking her, how are you going to, can you show us, how are we going to do this? So she only created a program for just women surgeons, like women doctors, to lose weight. It was extremely niched. And that's what happened, is that she sold like so much, and people were so grateful to her, and they were losing so much weight. So that's what it's all about, is what you're saying, is like, when you go deep and when you go tiny, it actually helps you grow faster, because you can own it. But if it's too big, then too many people are already in that space that are way bigger, who are paying way more to acquire somebody's attention. Like, I am still not big enough to be able to afford top dollar for somebody's attention. I get attention through my differentiator. I mean, like the Entrepreneurs on Fire. I was just listening to his podcast. He gets 600 applications a week, And I think I was telling you I was able to get in 20 minutes. Now I paid, but it doesn't matter even if you pay. And by the way, I think they quote different rates for different people. But anyway, luckily I got in at a cheaper rate. But yeah, that's what, like, the elevator pitching thing is the hook that gets me in. And then of course I sell them my services as a consultant. Like, I don't just, because the whole elevator pitch is like the tiny, tiny tip of the iceberg. The iceberg is the bottom of the iceberg. I don't know if you could see this.
Can see it.
The iceberg is your communication strategy of who you're going to target, what you're going to say to them, what problem you solve for them. I love talking to marketers. They get it.
Yeah.
I love it. They get it.
What
Needs us.
One of the things I love about what you said also is, you're welcome to pursue all these different avenues, but the way that I'm showing you is the way that's going to get you there faster and with less effort and with less cost. And so that's what I love. I love that sort of straight talk approach because, there's a million different ways you could do anything. Yeah. But when you're coming to someone for mentorship and they're giving you that advice, my feeling is I'm paying for it. I'm going to follow that advice for a little while at least and see, right? So yeah, I love that. So let me ask you, sort of drilling down on this niching thing. How do you know when you've hit gold? Like, how do you know when you've super niched enough?
Well, it's the market tells us, right? There's a whole market research process that the one that I was telling you where like I've baked it into a tiny little 15-minute times talking to 15 people process. And it literally tells you whether that niche is viable and whether you can charge what you want and whether people will give you an actual sales meeting afterwards. If that pain is bad enough, whether they'll give you a sales meeting afterwards. And this process, I know I say process, whatever.
You're Canadian.
Yeah. I'll go American. This process is, really actually converts into clients, even though that's not what we're after. In the niche research, we're after information, but people are still using it years after they graduate because it converts. Because guess what people want to talk about is their pain. Mm-hmm. Research is talking about their pain, and it goes down deep into their pain and about how much they would pay for it and what they would Google to search for it and where they would look for help and so on. And then would you like to meet with us to talk about like a few free suggestions about it? God, yes. Then turns into, how can I pay you? How much does it cost to work with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's really
yeah. I mean, I think this process though of discovering and claiming your super niche is so important for a number of reasons. I mean, and really, when you try to serve more than one niche, what I've found in working with, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients just privately on this issue is that when you try to work with more than one, especially if you're starting out early, it spreads you too thin, right? And so like I was saying before, right, it does require that you spend more to acquire a customer because now you're spreading yourself in multiple different directions. And so I really like what you were sharing earlier about how, look, if you've got multiple niches that you can serve, that's great, that's fine, that's good. Let's identify the one that has the most promise right now, right? Focus on that one, serve that one well, develop a certain amount of saturation there, right, and success there, and then let's add those others on later. For example, just in this space, right, Brennan Burchard, he's known as sort of the high performance guy, and he started out talking about high performance. As his career grew and built, he added into his business model talking about how to build a business like his, for example, right? And so, that's an example of someone who, as they grew, as they created saturation and success in a certain niche or in a certain market, or with even certain offerings and products, then bolted on additional ones. And this is something that we talk about in the Thought Leader Success Path as sort of going mainstream and scaling and then adding more products and services.
That's the dream. That's the dream, for sure. Right? That's the dream. You're so big that you're playing in so many. I mean, look at Tony Robbins. How many does he own? 60? Like, it's just
a lot.
But he grew from motivation, and then he decided he's going to do something about money training, and then he decided he's going to do something about online business training, and then business training and life training, right? I mean, that's the dream, but you have to start somewhere. You have to get known for something and differentiate. Otherwise, no one's going to notice you in the noise.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Do you want to ask the next question? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
No, okay. So Chala, this giveaway that you're a part of, the theme is mentorship. And so we're asking all of our participants in these interviews to just sort of share with our audience, how has mentorship and coaching helped you achieve the success that you've achieved?
Well, as I mentioned, I was broke and starving. And, and then I met a guy who was asking for $15,000 for, I think it was 3 months of coaching together. And I hadn't even paid that much for my house down payment. Like I'd never paid that much money in my life. I come from an immigrant background. This is what I talked about at NASDAQ. Like that kind of money wasn't even though I had made money as a corporate, employee, the whole mindset is so different. So what he said to me is, and I'll never forget, and he was like, it was a guy at a women's meeting. It was like, I don't even know how he got in. I think he got in with his wife. So he said, if you make the decision not to work with me out of your previous conditioned like brain thinking, then you'll never, ever achieve any more money than you have till this day. And I was 40 years old, you guys. It's sad. When he said that, it's too bad I never met him before, but I never had a business before. So then for some reason, I believed him. I didn't know him from Adam, but for some reason I believed him. He was very good. And he taught me a lot about breaking my conditioning around, and then I paid it. I had to put it onto 2 credit cards. When I told my immigrant parents when we were FaceTiming, their eyebrows disappeared off the screen. They were like, and then God bless, my ex-husband, we're still best friends. I told him I was doing this, and he comes from even more poverty background, but God bless him. He said, I wouldn't say don't do it. That's all he said. He said, I wouldn't say don't do it, which like the onus is on me. I don't even know why people ask their spouses. Like you're going to make the money. You're going to do the work. Why do you have to ask someone else? Like ridiculous. But anyway, so I went for it, and within a month and a half. Oh, and the other thing he told me is you have to pay it in full, because that'll give you a completely different experience. And for the love of God, I never once thought anybody could pay period for this kind of service, that kind of amount of money. And now my programs are $30,000 to work one-on-one with me. And I get that. I ask for it and I get it regularly. And there is if you pay in full up front, it's 25,000. So most of my clients often pay the 25,000. So that's been my experience since doing that. If it wasn't for that, and then I went, of course, to the next level mentor, and I paid 25,000 just for 4 hours of somebody's time, and I had to fly there and stay there. And I did that several times, and I still right now I have 2 coaches. And, last year I turned 50. I wanted to go down to 15% body fat. Of course, that's out the door now. They call it the COVID-15. Not because like 15 pounds. I didn't gain that much, but yeah, the 6-pack is gone. So I hired a specialist in after 50 fitness. Right? Because you guys don't know this, but if you were a woman, you'd get a menopause. No, I don't think you get a menopause when I don't get a menopause.
I have a pot of my own, but it's not from menopause. No.
It's a menopause, man.
And I have no excuse, so.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's how I feel about mentoring, is like, I have a mentor for every area of my life. I wouldn't be, because I never want to stop growing. I don't care how old I am. And incidentally, like I'm now like interviewing people for dating. You know what I mean? Like I don't mean interviewing, but like I'm meeting people, and we're trying to see if it's a match. And if there's so many people who just don't want to grow, who they don't even care. They don't care about personal growth or business growth or money growth or spirituality growth or any kind of growth. They're just like, oh, I'm just going to stream. I'm just going to go for a walk in the woods. I'll go for my run, but that's it, anyway. So yeah, that's how I feel. You want to know how I feel about mentorship?
Got it.
Awesome. Awesome. So you have a gift here in the Thriving Thought Leader giveaway. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so it's called Business Survival Marketing because, as we all know, things are melting down around us, and it's not really, predicted to look better within the next year, right? If anything, it could be worse when the subsidies run out, when the government, bailouts run out, and people emerge out into the streets where they can go out and hug each other, but there's no money, there's no jobs. So it could all be a reduced spending pool. It could be a continued smaller economy, really. That's what everybody's predicting. So in that economy, it is even more critical for businesses to stand out and to differentiate. So the training is called Business Survival Marketing, and it teaches one thing and one thing alone. And the big promise there is how to stand out without breaking your back or breaking the bank. And then I give you tons of examples of clients who we've helped stand out and what they've done. Like, check out the story of the shirtless web guy, right? And anywhere he used to go, like, as soon as we did his rebranding, people would crack up and they would ask to see, his card. And if he had a shirtless picture on his card, and he has a shirtless picture on the website that toggles with a picture with a shirt, right? He did a whole photo shoot with a laptop because he's a web developer.
Well, you won't catch us shirtless in any of our videos.
Not with my menopause.
You might get a different kind of client that way.
Yeah. Awesome.
Nice. Well, definitely, if you're in the giveaway already, you have a link. You can go directly to claim Chala's gift. Just check your email to go to the gifts page, and you can get it from there. If you haven't yet joined us in the giveaway, the link is here, tli.to/giveaway-chala. So we recommend, instead of typing it in, just click on it in the comments, and you can go claim it from there. Anything else you want to share with us before we wrap up?
No, I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity and for, doing this with me. I love you anyway, but this just puts another dimension to it. And I'm looking forward to doing so much more and learning so much from you guys. So thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining us. All right, everyone. Thanks for you joining us here live. And if you're watching the recording, thanks for joining us on the recording, and have a wonderful day.
Take care.
Bye.